Speaks Clock Nation Speaks, your Baltimore Ravens podcast, where we talk about the best team in NFL history. If you're a Ravens fan, I am a huge Joe Flacco fan. Wise Usher once said, "Situations will arise in our lives." I'm talking about shut down. Like you're not throwing on Jimmy Smith. Joe is criminally underrated, lock him up in cuffs, criminally underrated. Lamar's put this team as a top 5 offense for the first time in 20 years. Got the arm talent. Jay Cutler had it too. I don't care about this argument against total TDs and all this. Oh, you want to talk about defense? Oh, until next time. All right, what is going on, good people? Welcome back to Flock Nation Speaks, your Baltimore Ravens podcast, where we talk about the best team in NFL history. If you're a Ravens fan, of course. And I just real quickly, I got a couple things I want to get off my chest as we get ready for this 4:30 Saturday Ravens Steelers matchup. Right, like I got a couple of things I want to talk about. Right, of course, Dalvin Cook signing with the Ravens, big signing. We'll get into that. And, of course, the Ravens and the Steelers. And if it even means anything right now. Not, I think the rivalry, bar none, still love it. Still my favorite. Don't care what y'all say. Still my favorite rivalry. Don't care. Ravens Steelers, best rivalry in the league, bar none. Don't ask anybody else because they don't know what they're talking about. We know what we're talking about. But anyway, I will say this. I will say this. Let's jump into the Dalvin Cook conversation, right? Let's jump into the Dalvin Cook conversation, because this was a signing that I think Ravens fans wanted way back when, right? I want to even believe, and maybe I'm mistaken, but I think we've been waiting on this signing all year long, right? In the offseason, when Dalvin Cook was available and there was potential for a trade there, we wanted it, right? When he was eventually cut by the Minnesota Vikings and he was available, I think Ravens flock wanted it. And then the trade deadline happened, Ravens fans wanted it. And then now, after he cleared waivers and everything, Ravens fans wanted it, and finally Ravens fans got it. And why did we want it? But, the crazy thing is the Ravens are, if not the top rushing team, they're probably a top 3 rushing team in the league, right? And why would we, if you're already a top team, right, why would you want more? Which has been a question that's been asked, which is an obvious answer. There's never too much, right? We've talked about this time and time again with the receiver room, and now we're talking about with the running back room as well, right? So at the time of the trade deadline, this was before Keaton Mitchell had even burst onto the scene, right? Like, we knew there was potential with Keaton Mitchell once he came back, but we didn't know, we hadn't seen yet what it was going to be. So we're like, Derrick Henry, we're like Dalvin Cook. These are guys who could potentially be game changers in that kind of speed aspect. Let Gus do what he does. Let potentially Dalvin do what he does, right? And we saw a little glimpse of what kind of that yin and yang could be when it came down to Keaton Mitchell and Gus Edwards, right? To see the speed of Keaton Mitchell that just like change of pace that he gives, and then the power of Gus Edwards to just wear you down. It was kind of the perfect storm for what the Ravens want to do. But I will say, Dalvin Cook, it's funny because Dalvin Cook has been signed to the practice squad. Of course, he probably won't play against the Steelers. They're going to kind of keep him fresh, and I'm sure he'll be in the rotation, especially after the first round bye and all that. What does Dalvin Cook bring to this team? Because a lot of people feel like, well, let's take a look real quick. Because what does Dalvin Cook bring to this team is the real question that everybody has, right? Because Dalvin Cook, this season has felt like he's had an off year, right? He's just been down. He's been down because he's played for the Jets. They have Breece Hall, and especially once Aaron Rodgers went down, it felt like it was a Breece Hall showcase, right? It was we got to get Breece Hall into the game. We got to let Breece Hall grow into his role, right? So I'm trying to see. Like, it's honestly just felt like this year has been kind of the Breece Hall show for them, right? This year has been hey, we want to show off Breece Hall because he is the future, the running back of the future for this team in terms of the New York Jets. But I think Dalvin Cook still has a lot left to give. 4-time Pro Bowler. And when you look at the stats, let me pull them up just so y'all can see them, but can follow along with me. When you look at the stats, right? It's a little small. I'm trying to, if I can zoom into this, the Russian aspect of things a little bit for y'all. Okay, so when you look at the stats, right? 2017 was his rookie year. I think he actually, I think he's had 1 year where he's gotten hurt. But you look at the 4 Pro Bowl years, right? As he kind of came into his own, right? You got 2019, 1,100 yards, 13 TDs. I'm looking for yards per carry. Just say right here, 4 yards per carry. And then 1,500 in 2020, 1,100 in 2021, 1,173 in 2022. And then, of course, this year, only 214, but he just hasn't really been utilized, right? He hasn't really been utilized to the point of what he was previously. So it begs the question, how much does Dalvin Cook still have left to give? And I would say a lot, right? I would say a lot, especially in a Ravens offense where they like running back by committee. They do running back by committee mostly successful, right? Like mostly, I like to say mostly successful because I think sometimes the Ravens, especially in years past, have had a problem with riding the hot hand and giving the hot guy the chance to make plays in the running game. So I think he gives that kind of speed element, that kind of, twitchy element that I don't think the Ravens really have right now, right? I don't think the Ravens have like Justice Hill, and shout out to Justice Hill, especially against the Dolphins. He showed like, hey, I'm still out here, but Justice Hill doesn't do it on a consistent basis for the Ravens. And I think to have a guy who is a 4-time Pro Bowl with 4,000 yard seasons under his belt, and probably would have had 1,000-yard season in year 2 if he would have played all the games, it makes you feel it gives you a little bit more comfort. Like, I like Melvin Gordon, don't get me wrong, but Dalvin Cook is at a whole nother level than Melvin Gordon is, right? Dalvin Cook has only had a down year because he hasn't been utilized, not because he's not still talented or because he's getting older. Like, yes, he's getting older, but put him behind this offensive line that is run centric to begin with, then I think it'll be so. I think he's going to have an impact, right? He's going to have an impact. He's going to have a good change of pace impact for Dalvin Cook. Let me know what you guys think below about Dalvin Cook. The Dalvin Cook signing is Dalvin Cook. Was he the guy we need to sign? Did we, or were we good? Because it's the real question. Was Dalvin Cook the guy we need to sign? Or were we good? Did we need anybody else? We had Gus, we had Justice, right? Like, did we need another guy? But I mean, the Ravens always keep three running backs on the roster, and he was out there for anybody to claim, and he chose the Ravens. That's the other thing too. Like, I think that's of note. The Ravens, it's not that the Ravens were never necessarily interested, but they always had kind of guys on the back burner. But Dalvin Cook chose the Ravens. So number one, Dalvin Cook is looking to win a championship, right? He wants to sign with a contender. We see that. But at the same time, Dalvin Cook sees there's potentially opportunity. I saw somebody talking about the Dallas Cowboys. They were like, why wouldn't he sign with the Dallas Cowboys? And, because he may get more opportunity with the Dallas Cowboys. Why wouldn't he get just as much, if not more opportunity in a run for and still what I feel like for comparatively to the rest of the league, a run first offense, or at least a run centered offense or a run based offense, right? He's gonna get carries. And I'm gonna tell you one thing he's gonna get is touchdowns, because any running back that plays in the system gets touchdowns. Any running back that comes to the Baltimore Ravens, no matter how old you are, who you may have been before, you are going to get rushing touchdowns. Now let's jump real quick into this Ravens Steelers matchup. How are y'all feeling about this one today? Because of course, a lot of people sitting today because the Ravens have locked up the number 1 seed. That's a whole nother discussion, right? Like, should that have been the way it was done? But at the same time, you don't want to see guys get hurt either. So that's another aspect of it that you gotta, another aspect of the game within the game that you have to play. I still think it's personal, right? Like, Ravens Steelers is Ravens Steelers. I don't care if it's with Ryan, with my boy Ryan Mallett. Rest in peace to him. Like, I don't. When he was out there playing against the Steelers, I was still enjoying the games, right? So, to see Tyler Huntley get a chance against the Steelers, that's always a lot of fun. And to be in the position to not have to play your starters, right? To not have to play your starters in that way is also a good thing. So when it comes down to this Ravens Steelers matchup, I think this is going to once again show how deep the Ravens team is. It's kind of like, one of those where you keep some guys fresh, you keep some guys going, you let some of your depth show. But I think at the same time, like, you want to win this game because, the Ravens had a number one seed locked up. The Steelers, they got their over 500 season, but you still trying to play spoiler, right? You trying to play spoiler to the Steelers, and they literally they on the back end, like with a loss, and I'll bring this up so y'all can see this too. But with a loss, the Steelers become, let me pull it up. With a loss, the Steelers 15% chance of getting into the playoffs if they lose, right? So with the Steelers, it's one of those situations where it's like they gotta win. This is a must-win game for them to try to even sneak into the playoffs, because they get 66% if they win. Because right now with their 9-7, the Colts being 9-7, it seems like it's a lot of people fighting for that last spot. So you got the AFC South fighting against each other to get the AFC South crown, but at the same time, you got the AFC South fighting with the Steelers, the last team in the AFC North. Fighting with them to kind of get that final spot too. So it's crazy, man. Like, to look at the playoff picture, man, especially in the AFC, and see kind of who's clinched. Crazy to see the Browns up there. We've talked about that, like how crazy competitive they've been. But I think that's what the Ravens are playing for today too, right? They're trying to keep some guys fresh, in terms of like keep the momentum going to a certain degree. But at the same time, they're still trying to play a well-coached game, right? They're trying to outcoach the opposition. They're trying to make sure that the Steelers don't make the playoffs, because not to say that the Steelers are going to make a deep playoff run or anything like that, but nobody wants to see the Steelers in the playoffs, right? When it comes down to it, like, you don't want to see that defense that can make plays, and that offense that not necessarily, they're not the greatest offense we've ever seen, but an offense that has a chance to capitalize off of what the defense does. I don't think anybody wants to see that. It's interesting to see the last three teams, even with the Jaguars sitting up here too. It's crazy to see, because it's a lot of tough teams. Of course, the Ravens know about the Colts. They've seen that one. Week 1 against the Texans was week 1, but the Texans are a different team, especially if CJ Stroud is playing. I don't know if he will, but especially if CJ Stroud is playing, that's a whole different team. And then of course you got the Steelers, who, we know how these AFC North games go, right? We know how these AFC North, especially in the playoffs, especially just in general. We saw earlier in the season, the Ravens were obviously the better team from a talent perspective, but the Steelers still won the game. Why did they win the game? Because it's weird AFC North football, right? The Ravens receivers are going to drop more passes in this game than they have since the Lions game a couple years ago, right? Like, that's how this is going to happen. So it's like, I don't know if I really, as a Ravens fan, I don't know if I want to see an AFC North team. I'd rather see anybody but an AFC North team, because the AFC North teams, that's when stuff just gets weird and funky, and just doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't make, the games don't make sense. It doesn't go as planned. But keys to the game real quick, for the Ravens to beat the Steelers offensively, just keep doing what you do. Like, keep showing new things, right? Because people are going to watch the Ravens this week, and they're not going to think too much of it, right? Tyler Huntley's playing, all right, have your full cast of receivers playing. Gus might play a little bit, but you're not going to have a lot of your running backs playing or nothing like that, right? You're going to really just have, you really going to, you're going to have your backups in, you're going to kind of stay fresh. But this could be another opportunity to throw some things at the wall that, like, you might not typically do, right? So not to showcase anything to the rest of the league, but to try some things out that, might come up in the playoffs. A situation, it's still situational football. You're still playing football. So it's like, you're going to want to come out and showcase, hey, like, there could be something here, right? There could be some sort of something here, like that might be a new wrinkle to the offense that you can take note of and say, like, maybe we'll try this again in a couple weeks or so. So we'll see what happens. We'll definitely see how it goes defensively. I mean, we know the defense is going to be the defense, right? Especially against the Steelers. And this is probably, this could be, especially with backups playing and stuff like that, like this could be one of those old school Ravens Steelers games where it's just like low scoring, gritty, and you just got to get out of there as quick as you can, So we'll see. We'll definitely see how that goes. Definitely hope you guys enjoyed the show. We'll definitely be back to recap this Ravens Steelers game, get us ready for the playoffs as we get set to, it feels like almost like take 2 weeks off, but this week, of course, still counts, but it's weird to not see the usual cast of characters. So, kind of after taking almost 2 weeks off, it feels like it's going to be interesting to see how it goes, especially with everybody worried about how 2019 went. I think this team is an entirely different team, and maybe that's a whole nother discussion we'll have very, very soon. But I definitely hope you guys enjoyed the show. Once again, Financial Speaks is on all major podcasting platforms, so be sure to check the show out. If you want to take the show with you or whatever you got to do, be sure to do that. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Flock Nation. Peace.